Wow, here we are again, Brother Peter with tidbits from the Word. We're going to take a look. We're in chapter 18 of the book of Revelations. We've been running down through Revelation, and we've been taking excerpts out, and we've been doing pieces on Revelation. And so, right now we're in one that's called Micah. Now remember, in the temple, they had taken in to the church itself idols. They had idols put up, and we must be careful even today that we do not put idols in the church. My father was a very devout man of God, and he considered putting the flags in the church were putting idols in the church, because he considered the flag of the United States of America was perfect for what it was for out here. But when you took it into the church, you took it in there and you used it, you worshipped it as an idol rather than as what it was stood for outside of the sanctuary. So in the sanctuary was a holy place. You had to be careful that you didn't take the things of the world into the sanctuary and worship them in the sanctuary. And so that's what we need to be careful of today, too. We have many things. So here's Micah in verse 22 of chapter 18. And when they were a good ways from the house of Micah, the men who were in the houses near to Micah's house were gathered together and overtook the children of Dan. Now we see many things in this one verse. First we see they were a good way from where they were going. And they were the men of Micah's house. They were the men from his house. They were part of him. And the men who were in the house near Micah's house were gathered. So here was another house near Micah's house, and there were men gathered there and together. And they overtook the children of Dan. Now this is from the tribe of Dan. And so we see there was a goodly number of men there. They were neighbors. Micah joined him to try to retrieve the stolen items from the children of Dan. Now the stolen items that were from the children of Dan were idols. They were things that were taken out of the sanctuary that shouldn't have been in the sanctuary in the first place. So they were taken out of the sanctuary. And they cried unto the children of Dan, and they turned their faces and said unto Micah, What ails you, that you come with such a company? Now Micah had brought such a company with him, is that they were intimidating those others. And he said, You have taken away my gods which I made, and the priests, and you are gone away, and what have I more? And what is this that you say unto me? What ails you? Now he said, you stole my gods. He said, I made these with my hands. Oh, I had this beautiful eagle. It was the prettiest thing God ever created. And I whittled out one piece of wood, this great eagle, and I had this eagle there. And I had all these other things there. And they were mine. I had whittled them out, and we used them, and we looked at them, and we awed and oh and ee and ow of them. Can you believe I was in a church at a revival meeting not long ago, and in the back area going out to the restrooms there was some football memorabilia, football pictures there of a football team that had something to do with the church, and memorabilia hanging on the wall. Well, those are idols. Those are idols. They have no business being there. Those are idols. Football is an idol. It is an idol other than God. It is some people's God. I know some people, their God is football. If they paid as much attention to the Bible as they do football, and they would know who Jonah was. They would know who Isaiah was. They would know who Israel was. They would know who Jeremiah was. They would know some things of the Bible that they don't know because all they know is football. And so we must be careful today we don't bring those idols into our worship service. We actually do. We wear hats with football team on them. We talk football in the vestibule. If we're not careful, we will run over God with the things of the world in the vestibule. And that's supposed to be the place when you just get there that you're supposed to be saying, isn't this a wonderful day God has given us? God has blessed me this week. Let me tell you how God blessed me this week. The stories and the conversation in the vestibule of the church ought to be what God did this week. Not what football, baseball, basketball, golf, fishing, hunting. None of those things belong in the vestibule of the church. That's idle talk. And idle talk doesn't gain anything. Say, how many people did you win to the Lord this week? Wow. That's a good question in the vestibule. Wow, how did God bless you this week? Let's hear about that in this vestibule. Let's be talking about the church. Let's be talking about God. Let's be talking about the things that we're here for. We're here to worship God. We're not here to serve these idols. They are to be left outside of the church. If you have them in your life, they need to be left outside of the church, and which can be taken by others. So there are people and there are idols that can be taken by others. You know, the cross is not bad, but if you have a brass cross down there sitting on a table underneath the podium where the preacher preaches, and that brass cross has become an idol, I know what it represents, and we can have what it represents without it sitting there as a brass cross. And we must be careful we don't idolize the object, because it's not the object that counts. It's what happened on the object is what counts. The one that was on the object, the one that got off from the cross, the one that walked among all the people during that day after he was resurrected. And these things that we have in the church, sometimes they have no spiritual value. There is no spiritual value. Almost all of the modern churches today have different things that are part of the church. We have a table called a table of showbread, or the bread table down there, and we have a special harness that goes over the top of it and lays over it with tassels on it, and it's something supposedly special. Well, if we worship that and the rolling up of that and the putting away of that and the storing of it and the getting it out, and it becomes an idol. And if it got gone or disappeared, there would be many in the church would be shaken to the bone over this piece of cloth, this piece of material. It is not that piece of material that's the essence. The essence is what is done on top of that piece of material that can be done on a table without that material. But we've allowed the piece of material to become part of the thing, and it's not part of it. And so that's what we need to be careful of. Almost all the modern world functions presently in the same manner. It worships gods that were made by hands. And that's just a form of religion, but denying the power of the Godhead who didn't make anything with his hands, weren't made with his hands. Well, he formed the earth and whatever, but he didn't make anything to worship with his hands other than his son. And so, and there was no deliverer. That was those that were there in that particular time in Lachish. And the children, religion of the biggest God of all. The children of Dan said unto him, Let not your voice be heard among us, lest angry fellows run upon you, and you lose your life with the lives of your household. And the children of Dan went their way, and when Micah saw that they were too strong for him, he turned and went back unto his house. You can't fight. You cannot fight against idol worshippers. We have them in the churches, in our churches. They're idol worshippers. They worship a Sunday school room. They worship the room rather than what happens there. They worship things. When you make your own flag for your own class, and you say, this is our flag from our class, and nobody touch it, I defy you to put your hands on it. If you do, you're going to get cast out of heaven. That's the finite brain of a person who is duped by the devil. And we need to be careful of that kind of thing, that we do. Now, in the sanctuary of God in the Old Testament, the things that were sanctified by God, the pots, the pans, and the silvers and the cups and everything, it was sanctified under the worship of God. They were not to be idols to the people either. They were for the worship of God. And they were to be used for the worship of God. Why were they pure silver? Because God allowed it to be, and that's what He wanted. He wanted the best of the ore that came out of the ground. He wanted the 999 silver things. He wanted the 999 gold things. He wanted everything to be what He wanted it to be. Not that the items were supposed to be worshipped. Excuse me. But they were supposed to be used. Okay. I've drank my cup of nighttime tea. And I'm ready to go ahead and take a nap. And I'll probably be up again in a little while. And so, but I have enjoyed this study. I've been in it now for 2-3 hours. And I haven't put a thing on the YouTube because of the way I was studying it through. And studying the different things that are in it. There was, in this chapter 18, is a lot of separated things. If you'll take chapter 18 and look at it, Micah and the Danites, these were the people that he was being involved with in this particular chapter. And then we see that they had taken the images out, and Micah considered them stolen images. And then as we got down to verse 22, Micah himself does some questioning. And then when we get down to 27, we see the city of Dan. And when we get down to the 30, we see that it was all idolatry. What is idolatry? That's anything that is not of God in your sanctuary, in your place of worship, or in your life. I see, to me today, and I used to do it, and God showed me, the biggest God in my life, even after I was saved, the biggest God in my life was smoking. God had delivered me from alcohol, He had delivered me from cussing, and I was still smoking like a train. And because I was, God showed me that was idolatry. and I worshiped those cigarettes. I couldn't put them down. Smoking 2 to 3 packs a day. Even after I got saved, I had cut down some, knowing that it was an idol, and it was bad, and it was not good, and it was something I worshipped other than God. I could be reading the Bible and light up a cigarette and lose the Spirit of God had come on me and was showing me things in the Bible, and I light up a cigarette and blow smoke in God's face and lose the ability to understand what the Bible was saying. That's why God is interested in us being clean. He wants us to get the idols out of our life. Anything, just about anything, can become an idol. So you need to get the idol out of your life. Well, this is Brother Peter with tidbits from the Word, and we will see you next time. Right. This is very short, but to the point.